It was a quiet afternoon in the heart of Ouagadougou. The sun hung high, casting long shadows over the bustling streets. President Ibrahim Traoré walked through the crowded market, dressed simply in a beige shirt, brown trousers, and a worn hat pulled low over his brow. No bodyguards, no entourage, just him and a world unaware of who he was. To the people, he was just another man, moving through the market like a shadow in the dust. He wanted it this way. For too long, the voices of the people had been drowned out by the noise of the elite. He needed to listen to them, see the world through their eyes, feel their struggles firsthand. His advisers had cautioned him against such walks, reminding him of the dangers, but Ibrahim had always trusted his instincts more than anyone else's warnings. "I'll be back before sundown," he had promised his wife that morning, but she had looked at him with the same worry she had always shown when he ventured into the streets alone. "Ibrahim," she had said softly, "good men have many enemies." He had smiled, kissed her on the forehead, and left anyway. Now, as he wandered through the market, blending in with the crowd, his eyes sharp and focused, he overheard something that would change everything. A boy stood on a rickety box near the edge of the market. His voice, though young, carried the weight of urgency. "Breaking news!" he shouted, his words cracking through the murmur of the crowd. "Traitors inside the government! They're plotting to kill the president tonight!" Ibrahim froze in his tracks. The boy was holding a makeshift radio, held together with tape and wires. He repeated the message, louder this time, a sense of dread creeping into his voice. "Enemies inside the government. They're planning to kill the president during a secret meeting tonight." The crowd didn't seem to notice. Some laughed, others tossed coins into the boy's cup, but Ibrahim's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't ignore the voice of panic. He approached the boy casually, pretending to be another passerby. Just curious. "Where did you hear that?" Ibrahim asked, his voice steady, but filled with a hidden urgency. The boy looked up, confusion in his eyes. "Who wants to know?" he asked, his tone defensive. "I'm just curious," Ibrahim said, leaning in closer, his mind racing. "Is this some kind of joke?" The boy's face darkened. "It's no joke, Uncle. I heard it on my radio. Some men were talking in codes, but I could hear the words clearly. They said, 'Tonight is the night,' and they mentioned the president by name." Ibrahim felt a cold shiver run through him. He motioned for the boy to step closer. "Do you have a recording of that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The boy pulled out an old cassette recorder from his bag, one that looked as if it belonged to a time long past. He pressed play, and static crackled through the speakers. Faint voices, distorted but unmistakable, echoed through the air. "He must be gone before morning," one voice said, low and filled with malice. "Tonight, when he meets the council, we'll have people inside. The guards will be ours." Ibrahim's heart sank. He recognized one of the voices, one of his own, a trusted member of his inner circle. "Do you know who these men are?" Ibrahim asked, his hands now trembling. The boy shook his head. "No, sir. But I know where the signal came from. I traced it myself. I've been listening to radio since I was a kid. My father was a soldier. He taught me all this before he died." Ibrahim stood there, frozen for a moment. This boy, a child of the streets, had just handed him the key to a conspiracy that could shatter everything. "Can you come with me?" Ibrahim asked, his voice calm but filled with an unspoken urgency. "Why?" the boy asked, his voice cautious now. "Because I believe you," Ibrahim said, the weight of his words sinking in. The boy stared at him, wide-eyed. You're the president?" Ibrahim smiled softly. "Not here, not yet. But keep quiet. We need to move quickly." As Ibrahim turned to leave, the crowd resumed its chatter, oblivious to the moment that had just unfolded in their midst. But deep in the streets, a whisper spread. The president knew, and the plot against him had already begun. That night, the president's guards, now fully aware of the danger, moved swiftly, but with the kind of caution that only comes from years of practice. Ibrahim's convoy moved silently through the back streets of Ouagadougou, avoiding the usual paths, the flashing lights, the attention. There would be no fanfare. Not tonight. Inside the black SUV, Ibrahim sat beside the boy, Ismail, whose wide eyes took in the luxurious interior with a mix of awe and fear. He had never ridden in a car like this before, had never seen a world this polished, this clean. But he wasn't here to marvel at the luxury. He was here to help save a life. Ismail, Ibrahim said softly, breaking the silence. Why did you come forward today? Ismail hesitated, shifting nervously in his seat. I don't know, sir. I didn't want to be part of anything bad. I just wanted to help. People talk about you. They say you care for the poor. I thought maybe you'd care about a boy like me too. Ibrahim looked at him with a quiet understanding. You saved my life today, Ismail. No one has ever done that before. Ismail's eyes widened. You mean it? I mean it, Ibrahim said, a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. And tonight, you'll be part of something bigger than both of us. They arrived at the presidential palace, where Ibrahim was immediately met by his chief of security, Commander Siku. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, and always composed, but tonight his face was tight with worry. Ibrahim knew that he too could sense the gravity of what was unfolding. Sir, Siku said, his voice steady, we've been tracking the traitors. They're in the council room right now, waiting for you to arrive. We've got people on the inside, but they're planning to strike the moment you walk through that door. Ibrahim nodded, his expression hardening. We'll be ready. But we need to move quickly. I want to confront them directly. We can't let them think we're scared. Siku's eyes narrowed. Understood, sir. Inside the council room, the traitors were waiting, unaware that their plan was about to implode. Their faces twisted with disbelief and fear, each one realizing they had underestimated the calm strength of Ibrahim Traoré. I didn't know, one of the conspirators stammered, trying to speak, but his words were tangled in panic. He was a mid-level officer, someone who had been with Ibrahim from the beginning. His betrayal cut deeper than any stranger's. Ibrahim's gaze didn't waver. He wasn't here for explanations. He wasn't here for excuses. This wasn't about a failed plot. This was about the future of Burkina Faso. You thought you could take me down, did you? Ibrahim's voice was low but sharp, like a knife slicing through the thick air. I know my enemies. I know my friends, too. And the people who are loyal. Those are the ones I trust with my life. The Minister of Defense, who had once been a close ally, was now visibly sweating, his hands trembling slightly as he adjusted his uniform. He had once dined with Ibrahim, shared stories of their shared vision for the country. But now, the reality of their betrayal hung heavy between them. I never wanted this to happen, the Minister of Defense muttered, his voice breaking. It was just a moment of weakness, Ibrahim. The pressure, the threats. Enough, Ibrahim interrupted, his voice firm but not loud. You chose your side, and now the consequences will follow. At the back of the room, Commander Siku, ever the professional, stepped forward with a file in hand. He had already gathered the evidence, documents, encrypted messages, foreign bank accounts. He didn't need to speak. His cold eyes said it all. Ibrahim turned to him. Take them away. No need for a public trial. Their actions speak louder than their words. The soldiers moved quickly, surrounding the traitors and guiding them out of the room. But Ibrahim's eyes lingered on the Minister of Defense a moment longer, his thoughts unreadable. Tell me, Ibrahim said, his tone almost conversational now. What did you think would happen when you plotted against me? Did you think I would just sit back and let you succeed? That I wouldn't be prepared? The minister, now shaking his head, mumbled an apology. But it was too late for words. I've been ready for this moment, Ibrahim continued, his gaze cold. I've seen this before. Men like you, with ambition, with power, thinking they can take what isn't theirs. But you forgot one thing. The room was still. The only sound the shuffle of feet as the traitors were escorted out. You forgot that I've been watching. And tonight, you've learned what happens when you betray the people who trust you. The next morning, the sun rose over Ouagadougou with an air of quiet tension. The streets were calm, but something had shifted. People were talking, whispering, but in hushed tones. The news of the plot against their president had already spread through the city, like wildfire, igniting a sense of unease and yet something else. Respect. For the first time in months, the streets felt different. There was a renewed sense of loyalty to their leader. The whispers weren't just about the betrayal. They were about what came next. The people of Burkina Faso had seen their president face down danger, not with rage, but with calm precision. And in that moment, they saw him for who he truly was. The call to action came later in the day. Ibrahim Traoré stood before a crowd in the central square, his presence commanding but without fanfare. No speechwriters, no grand podium. Just him and the people. He wasn't here to gloat. He wasn't here to rub anyone's nose in their failure. He was here to send a message. Yesterday, Ibrahim began, his voice steady and clear, some of our own tried to betray us. But this is not the time for anger or regret. This is the time for unity. We have shown that when we stand together, no enemy, foreign or domestic, can break us. The crowd stood in silence, absorbing his words. Ibrahim had always been a leader who spoke little, but when he did, it was always powerful, always precise. We are not defined by the actions of a few, he continued. We are defined by the strength of our people. And tonight, when you go to bed, know that your president is watching over you. Not as a figurehead, but as one of you. The crowd erupted into applause, their voices rising in unison. The chants were quiet at first, but then they grew louder. Traoré! Traoré! The words rang out across the square, echoed by the people who had once been skeptical of the young president. But now they had seen his resolve. They had seen the true measure of his leadership. But the story didn't end there. In the shadows, beyond the streets of Ouagadougou, a far more dangerous game was being played. Ibrahim knew this would not be the end. There would be others, new plots, new enemies, foreign powers who didn't like the way Burkina Faso was changing. They had made their move through the men who had plotted against him. But this was just a distraction, a smokescreen. Ibrahim had seen the signs, smelled the foreign influence in the air, long before the traitors made their move. 2 days later, as the dust began to settle, a courier arrived at the presidential palace with an encrypted message. It was short, cryptic, and unmistakably foreign. The message read, "The first wave failed, but we are not finished. Prepare for a larger storm." Ibrahim's fingers traced the words carefully, his face expressionless. He had suspected as much. The West had never been pleased with his rise. He had defied their will, rejected their influence, and now they were coming for him. But Ibrahim wasn't afraid. He had been prepared for this moment all along. His mind raced through the options, the possible moves, the strategies. He wasn't just playing for his country. He was playing for Africa's future. He turned to Siku, who had been standing silently by his side. "Make sure every key player knows their position," Ibrahim said calmly. "We are not just protecting ourselves anymore. We are protecting every African nation that dares to stand up." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the palace, Ibrahim knew that the next battle was already underway. But this time, it wouldn't just be fought on the streets of Ouagadougou. This was a battle for the soul of the continent, and Ibrahim Traoré wasn't about to lose it. The following weeks were filled with quiet but deliberate action. Ibrahim Traoré's government strengthened its grip on the country. The traitors had been dealt with swiftly, and with the support of the people, he pushed forward with plans to remove foreign military influence from Burkina Faso for good. The roads were being built, the schools revitalized, and the people, once disillusioned, found new hope. But it wasn't just about infrastructure or policies. It was about a new era. An era where Africa would no longer be dictated to. An era where leaders like Ibrahim Traoré stood tall and united, not only for their own nations, but for the entire continent. And so, as Ibrahim looked out over the land he had sworn to protect, he felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. He had anticipated the betrayal, but he had also anticipated the strength of the people. And together, they would write the future. Burkina Faso, he said softly to himself, is only the beginning.